Hi there! Today we are going to be looking at creating a textured background onto a page. Now this could be used as a background for an artist research page, it could be used as a background for a painting or a drawing, but the point of this is that you create something that has texture, something that has contrast, using materials that you should be able to find around your house. So, to start with, I've got a piece of paper here. Now, I'm using an A3 piece of paper. You can use whatever size that you want to. I have got a glue stick. I've got two different paintbrushes. Now, if you don't have a paintbrush, you can use something else. You could use your fingers, or if you wanted to, you could use a sponge. A normal washing up sponge will do as long as it's clean. I've got some kitchen towel here. That's just for wiping off my brushes. I've got a water pot, so I've just got it half filled with water. I've got a small cup of tea. Now this is literally just water, warm water, not cold water, otherwise the tea bag doesn't really, the tea doesn't dissolve that well if it's too cold. So warm water with a tea bag in there, and then I've also got a pot here of acrylic white paint. If you don't have acrylic paint, you could use any other paint that you might find around your house. For example, emulsion that you can use on the walls. If you don't have this, it's not the end of the world, though. You could use an alternative, just white coloured pencil, something like that. I've also got some masking tape. Now again, this you won't necessarily need, but if you have some, that would be excellent. It's just sort of decorator's tape, easily tearable, nice and easy to use. I'll just pop that up there. I've got a pair of scissors. And then my materials. So I've got my plain white paper. This is nice and thick, just so that it can hold all of the wet media. So if you've got normal A4 printer paper, I would recommend using slightly less water than what I'm going to be doing. It will make the page wrinkle a little bit. I've got some bits and pieces that I found around my house. So I've got some, these are called luggage tags. They're often used on parcels, just brown card. I've got some lined paper. I've ripped out some pages from the newspaper. Now you'll see here that I've selected sections that have got writing on. I'm not selecting the areas that have got pictures on. I just want the text so it can kind of merge into the background a little bit. It doesn't stand out too much. I've also got some box cardboard. Now I got this from an Amazon parcel, but you could use a cereal box or something like that. And then I've also got some brown parcel paper. Now again, this is just something that came in a package. So if you've ordered anything recently, have a look at what kind of materials were used to package your item. Okay, so let's get started. We've got the white A4 page. Now the main thing that you need to think about is creating balance across the page. So laying out your materials onto the page first, just to get an idea. Now I would start with the darkest materials first. So I'm actually going to start with my brown parcel paper. To do this, I'm just going to tear it. This doesn't need to be super neat. I'm going to rip it up and have a look at how this might sit onto my page. Now this is actually going to be a little bit too big, so I think I will tear it a little bit more. Let's see. And I quite like how that fits just there. So that's looking good at the moment. I'm going to leave that there for a moment. It will probably curl up a little bit, but that's fine. I'm going to tear off a smaller piece. I think this one might go at the top here, maybe. So I quite like that. Yeah, I think I'll go with that to start with. So parcel paper can be stuck down just with normal glue stick. You could use Pritt stick or anything you've got at home. PVA will work as well. Just bear in mind that that is a little bit more kind of liquidy. It will be wetter on the page, so you might have to leave it to dry before you do any other bits and pieces. So I'm just putting plenty of glue on this, and then I'm going to place it down. push down. There we go, there's the first section, and then I'll just pop this one up here. So this is just adding a little bit of texture to start with. Just placing this down. There we go. Okay. Brilliant. So we've got some brown parcel paper there. I think I'm going to add some cardboard. Now this will add a lot of texture. You can see here that when you tear the cardboard, it does tend to pull the top layer away. So you get this really interesting sort of corrugated section here. So I'm just going to tear some bits away. See if we can get an interesting shape here. I just want it to be quite rugged, quite sort of worn looking. I don't like how that tore, so let's have a go at that. Lovely. Now you can see this is a slightly different colour to the brown parcel paper, and that gives a nice contrast. So I think I might, there's quite a lot of white space here, so I'm thinking I might put this somewhere around here. It's a little bit big at the moment though. Maybe if I just tear that a little bit more. Brilliant. Okay, I quite like that. Which way round? This side has more texture, I think. Yeah, let's go for that. Now you can see as I'm laying things onto the page, I'm improvising a little bit. I'm thinking about how things are going to look, how I'm going to spread things out. There we go. So I'll just press that down nice and firm. Pop the lid back on my glue. Okay. There we go. Excellent. So we've got two different types of brown paper here. I'm thinking I need something a little bit different, a bit more colour. Let's go for some text from the newspaper. Now it doesn't matter what the words are, it's got no relevance to the work that we're doing. We are just going to tear out some sections of the newspaper. Get some interesting shapes out of this. Quite like this shape here actually. Maybe if I have it going off top of the page perhaps. I'm not sure on that one. Maybe quite like that. Maybe going off the bottom there. Yeah, let's start with that then. So again, just using the glue stick to stick everything down. The most important part with this really is that you make sure when you're gluing your pieces down, you put glue right to the edges. If you don't do that, they do tend to start peeling up, especially when you start adding the water with the tea or the paint. I think I need something else here. I'm going to get a little bit more text from the newspaper. You can see I'm just ripping away the sort of loose, not loose, the sort of plain areas of this really. Let's go for a bit down there, that's great. Now bear in mind, like I said, it doesn't matter what words or what the information is about in the newspaper, you're going to paint over most of it anyway. I was going to use some lined paper. I'm not sure I'm going to. I think it might get a little bit busy. In fact, maybe I'll just put a small section. Let's just maybe over here somewhere. Yeah, we'll just pop that one over here. Okay, perfect. Right then, so I have laid out my page. I have thought a little bit about what I'm adding, sort of where the balance is. I don't want too much white space showing. I'd like it to kind of have lots of interesting features. Now, like I said, this can be used for a background for various things, so think about what you intend to do on this. My piece, for example, I'm planning on drawing a portrait on it in the style of Louis Jova. However, you could use this as a background for something like an architecture drawing, maybe of a building, or something like that. So, to start with, I'm going to start with my acrylic paint. Now, the reason I'm going to start with my paint is that it is thicker than the tea. So what this means is it will lay down quite a thick base. It's less likely to make the page wrinkle, and also the tea is less likely to collect this, whereas if I was to put this on top of the tea, it might mix together and look a little bit messy. So I'm going to start with this one. Now, I think I'm going to start with my smaller brush. It has a pointier tip. Put a little bit of water on the end of my brush here. Just dab it off on the kitchen paper. I'm just going to mix my brush. Now, same as if you were using a paintbrush normally, don't put the paint too high up the brush. I've put quite a lot of paint on here, but you can see it's only about halfway up. Okay, so now I'm just going to start mark making. Now, I'm just going to start in the middle here, and I'm applying the paint, you can see here, very thickly, just sort of filling in blocked shapes. I'm letting the cardboard show through here and here, and I'm just sort of spreading it out across the page, using a cross-hatching technique backwards and forwards. And you can see I did put the paint on quite thick to start with, but I thinned it out a little bit by spreading it out, and this has meant that the text still shows through a little bit down here. I think we'll do another bit just up here, a bit bigger this time. Obviously, if you are working on a surface at home, be careful not to mark it. Maybe it might be worth putting some big sheets of newspaper underneath, just in case you spill some paint or anything. We'll just pop a little bit more up here, I think. Now, the white paint doesn't show up very well on the paper, on the white paper, but don't worry about that, that's absolutely fine. Okay, maybe a little bit down here. Now, although I'm putting this paint on thickly, I am using it sparingly. And you can see here I've not actually used very much out of my pot. Okay, so that's a nice start. We've got some messy kind of textures here, looking a little bit worn. So I'm going to rinse out my brush. Just nice and clean. Dry that off, I'll just pop that over there. Now I'm going to go for my other brush and we're going to go in with some tea. Now you can see that by now the tea has mixed in a little bit and we've got a really nice rich sort of browny gold colour. So what I'm going to do, I'm using a bigger brush this time. This is just a Wilkinson's DIY brush, just for sort of painting walls and things. It's quite thick. So I'm just going to apply this quite thickly to some of the white areas on the page. Oh, let's have a look. Lovely. Now, like I said, if you don't have a paintbrush for this, that's absolutely fine. I'm just going to bring this on top of the white paint as well. You'll see that you get a little bit of texture coming out, especially over here. When you're adding your tea, think about where you're laying it out. Where are you putting it on the page? Is it going to add colour? This is quite messy. So think about your surfaces, make sure they are protected. So I'm just popping some tea down here. Just staining the page really. And you can see here that the brown that the tea is adding is very, very subtle. If I wanted to make this darker, I can press my paintbrush against the actual tea bag and this does come out a little bit darker. You can see there, you can spatter it like this with a sort of stippling effect. Okay, And I think we are done. So I'm just going to rinse off my paintbrush in my water pot, just plain water here. Lovely. Now I just need to leave this to dry and then it is ready to add a drawing or a painting on top of. You can see I've got a lot of textures here. I've spread my different materials out across the page, but everything here is done with things that can be available to you in the home. You could use one or two of these things. You could use some extra things such as the luggage tags I suggested, or maybe some used envelopes. You could even add some masking tape on here, so I've got some masking tape here so I could maybe place it up here. I could tear a little bit more off, and we could add some down here perhaps, and it's just adding that little bit more texture to your page. Okay, so when you've finished, leave it to dry. It should be dry in maybe an hour or two, and then you can start working on top of it. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and it was very helpful, and I will see you all again very soon. Bye!